You've never had a willpower problem in your life. Think about the last promise you made to yourself before falling asleep. Tomorrow you'll wake up early. Tomorrow you won't check your phone in bed. Tomorrow the desk stays clear. And then tomorrow arrived, and somehow you did the exact same thing again. Not because you decided to, but because your brain didn't ask permission. Most people call that laziness. It isn't. It's something closer to programming, and by the end of this video, you're going to catch your own brain running code you never consciously installed. Stay until Trap 5 because the most stressful object in your entire house might cost less than $1, and you probably walked past it this morning without noticing. Trap 6 is built on something a 16th century tea master designed on purpose. A doorway so small you have to bow to get through it. And once you hear why, you won't walk into your own home the same way again. And Trap 7. I'll save that one for the end, because it isn't really about your room at all. It's about a question your room asks you, silently, every single morning, before you've spoken a single word. Let's get into it. Right now, without moving your head, count how many objects you can see. Go ahead. Actually count them. However many you landed on, most of those objects are making a decision on your behalf all day without your permission. There's a word for the opposite of that. It's ma, the space between things. Not emptiness as absence. Emptiness as something that's actively doing work. In Kyoto, there's a 500-year-old rock garden called Yoanji. 15 stones arranged in raked gravel. And the design does something strange on purpose. From no single spot in the viewing hall can you ever see all 15 stones at once. There's always at least one hidden. Historians still argue about why, but the accepted idea is this. The empty gravel between the stones isn't background. It's the actual subject. You're not looking at rocks. You're looking at space, doing work on your attention. Here's the part that matters for you, and it's the whole reason this video exists. Most people assume their environment just makes things more convenient or less convenient. A tidy desk, a messy desk. Same person, slightly smoother day. That's not what's actually happening. After enough repetitions, your brain stops making decisions altogether. It simply follows the path the room has rehearsed thousands of times before. That isn't motivation. That's conditioning. And conditioning, repeated long enough, stops being a behavior and starts being who you are. Keep that in mind because every trap on this list isn't a tip. It's a piece of the training your room has already been running on you, whether you agreed to it or not. Your brain doesn't reward effort, it rewards distance. Given two available actions, it will almost always default to whichever one requires the fewest inches of movement. And it will keep choosing that option long after you've decided, consciously, that you'd rather not. Here's the chain. Phone sits beside the bed. Brain notices it's the closest available action the second you're conscious. Wake becomes scroll, automatically, dozens of mornings in a row. And somewhere around morning 30, it stops being a habit you have and starts being a description of who you are. I'm just someone who checks my phone first thing. You didn't decide that about yourself. Proximity decided it for you, 1 inch at a time. Now imagine waking up tomorrow and the phone isn't there. It's charging across the room near the entryway. You stand up, open the curtain, drink a glass of water, and only then, already moving, do you go get it. That's surprisingly close to how a lot of mornings begin in traditional Japanese homes, and there's an old idea behind the layout. Kekkai, a boundary marking the line between one kind of space and another. Shrines have used kekkai for centuries. A rope, a gate, a line in the gravel, marking where the ordinary world ends. A charger on the far side of the room is running the exact same function. It's not a productivity hack. It's a deliberate interruption in the shortest path, placed there before your brain can finish building the habit that would have quietly become your identity. The shift. You don't need more discipline at 6 in the morning.
You need to stop leaving the shortest path open. That one you can interrupt tonight just by moving a charger 6 feet. The next trap isn't sitting on a nightstand though. It's sitting on every surface in your house, and it isn't making you distracted. It's training your eyes to never stop working. Picture your desk right now. Not a nice desk. Your actual desk. This week. Now picture yourself sitting down to do one specific task, and somehow you check your email first, move a cup out of the way, open another tab, straighten a stack of papers, before you've done the thing you actually sat down to do. Here's why that keeps happening, and it has nothing to do with attention span. Your visual system doesn't get to choose what it scans. It scans everything in the field of view, constantly, whether you want it to or not. Every object on that desk gets silently processed and silently decided on. Deal with it, ignore it, feel a flicker of guilt about it, before you've made a single choice about the actual task. That's not distraction, that's decision fatigue, and it's already spent by the time you've opened the file you meant to work on. Do this enough times and something worse happens. Your brain starts labeling the desk itself as a source of low-grade stress, separate from whatever work happens there. You stop wanting to sit down, and you call that procrastination, when really it's your nervous system flinching at a room it has learned to associate with friction. 600 years before minimalism was a word anyone used in English, the tea master Sen no Rikyu was building rooms in Kyoto meant to hold almost nothing. A single scroll, a single flower, enough space that a guest's eyes had nowhere left to wander except toward the one thing that mattered. The Japanese word for what he was practicing is danshari, built from 3 characters meaning to refuse, to dispose, and to separate. It was never about owning nothing. It was about refusing to let objects hijack attention that belonged somewhere else. The shift. A cluttered desk doesn't test your focus. It trains your eyes to work overtime before you've earned a single dollar of output. That leads somewhere stranger than a tidy desk, though. What if the objects in your house are actually competing for your attention, and the ones that shout loudest are the ones that win, whether or not they're good for you? Open your fridge right now, in your mind. What's the first thing you actually see? Now open your pantry. Same question. If you had to eat something in the next 30 seconds without thinking about it, what would your hand land on? Here's the mechanism. The item that asks for attention most often becomes the habit that survives, not the item that's best for you, not the item you'd choose on a form. Just the one that's advertising itself the loudest, at eye level, in bright light, with nothing between it and your hand. Your brain doesn't reward willpower. It rewards salience. Whichever object gets seen first, most often, wins the competition before choice was ever really involved. Now picture a kitchen where the competition has been rigged the other way. Water already poured, sitting where you'll see it first. Fruit out, not buried. A book on the arm of the chair instead of a shelf across the room. That's the everyday, unglamorous version of kaizen. Small, continuous improvement. A term that came out of post-war Japanese manufacturing and quietly spread into daily life. Kaizen isn't a discipline upgrade. It's rigging the advertising war in favor of the option you actually want to win. The shift. You were never choosing between discipline and indulgence. You were choosing whichever object had been advertising to you the longest. But there's one piece of furniture almost every home gets wrong, and it isn't in the kitchen. It's standing in the corner of your bedroom right now, and it reveals something your brain does to every ambiguous space in your house. Right now, actually think about it, picture the chair in your bedroom. Not a chair in general, yours. Does it actually hold a person, or has it quietly become a pile of clothes you haven't decided about yet? Almost everyone has one, and here's why it isn't a character flaw.
Your brain doesn't tolerate ambiguous space for long. If an object, a surface, or a corner has no assigned destination, your brain will invent one. Usually, the destination that requires the least decision-making, which almost always means, just put it down here for now. That chair was never chosen to be a clothes pile. It became one by default, because nobody ever gave it a different job, and your brain filled the vacancy the moment it noticed one was open. Traditional Japanese homes solve this with something called a tokonoma, a small alcove built into the room on purpose with exactly one function: to hold a single scroll or a single flower arrangement, nothing else, ever. It's not a shelf, it's not storage. It's a space with a destination so specific that ambiguity can't move in. That's the same principle behind seiton, a term from Japan's post-war 5S workplace system, meaning, almost literally, a place for everything. Not a tidier home, but a specific location assigned to a specific object, in advance, so your brain never gets the chance to invent one on its own. The shift. Clutter rarely begins with laziness. It begins with a vacancy your brain filled before you noticed it was open. Those first 4 traps all live in plain sight. The next one is invisible, and it's about to reveal the most stressful object in your entire house. Here's the object I promised you at the start of this video. The single most exhausting object in an average home isn't expensive, isn't large, and isn't dramatic. It's not the messy garage. It's not the overflowing closet. Pause. It's a loose cabinet handle. Something that costs less than $1 to fix. There's a real psychological effect behind why this one small thing outweighs bigger messes. It's called the Zeigarnik effect, named after a psychologist who noticed that waiters remembered unpaid orders in perfect detail and forgot them almost instantly the moment the bill was settled. Unfinished tasks get stored in a special kind of active memory that finished ones don't. Your brain keeps replaying them precisely because they're not resolved, not because they're important. Centuries before that had a name in the West, Japanese martial arts and tea ceremony had already built a discipline around it. Zanshin, meaning remaining mind. The idea that an action isn't finished until your attention has fully released it. A swordsman doesn't turn away the instant a strike lands. A tea master doesn't leave the room the moment the last cup is poured. The handle, the bill, the message you meant to answer, each one is an open loop your brain refuses to file away, because as far as it's concerned, the task isn't done. It's just paused. And paused things get replayed on a loop you never asked for. The shift. Fatigue doesn't always come from doing too much. Sometimes it comes from finishing nothing all the way. Trap 6. The one built on something a 16th century tea master designed on purpose. And it's happening to you every single day, the second you walk through your own front door. What do you actually see in the first 5 seconds after you walk through your own door? Be honest. For a lot of people, it's shoes in 2 different directions, a bag dropped wherever it lands, mail from 3 days ago still sitting where it fell. Nothing about that moment tells your body the day is actually over. So it doesn't relax, it just keeps running the same low-level alert it's been running since you left the house that morning. In the 16th century, the tea master Sen no Rikyu designed something almost cruel on purpose. To reach his tea house, guests, including powerful lords used to being deferred to everywhere else, had to walk a narrow garden path called the roji, then bow and physically crawl through a door barely 3 feet high called the nijuriguchi. No exceptions, no matter how important you were outside that door. By the time you stood up inside, something in you had already changed. The room didn't ask you to feel humble. It made your body perform humility before your mind had agreed to it. A modern genkan is doing a smaller version of the same trick. It's a sunken step where shoes come off and the outside world stays outside. Not just practically, but ritually, tied to older ideas about impurity being left at the boundary rather than carried further in. You don't drift into a genkan the way you drift into an entryway with no threshold. You arrive at it, pause, and your body crosses a line before your mind has caught up. The shift. That threshold was never about shoes. It was designed so your body could finish arriving home before your mind had to be told to. Every trap so far, the phone, the desk, the fridge, the chair, the drawer handle, the front door, has been building toward the same claim, quietly, 6 different times. Your environment doesn't just make things easier, it rehearses who you become. Stop here, let that land. Your environment doesn't just make things easier, it rehearses who you become. 1 trap left, and it isn't really about your room at all. It's about the question your room has been asking you, silently, this entire video. Every room asks you a question, every single time you walk into it. Who lives here? A distracted person or a peaceful one? Someone in control of their space or someone their space has quietly taken control of? You answer that question every morning before you've spoken a single word to anyone. Not with an opinion, with your hand reaching for the phone, or not. With your eyes landing on clutter, or on empty space that asks nothing of you. The room doesn't wait for you to decide who you are. It already has an answer rehearsed, based on 6 months of you walking through it the exact same way. There's a word for the last stage of Japan's old workplace discipline system. After refusing excess, after assigning a place to everything, after cleaning and standardizing, the 5th and final stage is shitsuke, sustained practice, repeated until it stops being effort and becomes identity. It comes from extremes of craftsman apprenticeship, where a student wasn't told what a master believed. They repeated the same motion for years until their hands believed it before their mind ever articulated a reason. That's why traditional Japanese homes aren't designed to demand discipline from you every morning. They're designed to rehearse calm so many times that eventually you're not choosing it, you just are it. The shift. You didn't fail to build better habits. You built a room that kept voting for someone else, and you kept losing the election without ever knowing you were in one. Before you go, run this on your own space. 30 seconds. Right now, wherever you're sitting. Question 1. Is this object here because it's useful or because it was the shortest path available at the time? The phone by the bed, the mail on the counter, almost everything fails this test the second you actually ask it. Question 2. Is this an open loop or a closed one? The drawer handle, the bill, the message. Each one left open is a zygarnic loop your brain keeps replaying whether you notice it or not. Close it now while it's still small. Question 3. If this room voted for the person you're becoming, would it vote for who you actually want to be? Not does this look clean. Is this room, right now, rehearsing the right identity? 3 questions, 30 seconds. If a space fails all 3, that's the first one to fix tonight. Look around the room you're in right now. Which of these 7 traps did you already recognize? And which one did you genuinely not expect? Tell me the number 1 through 7 in the comments right now. And if this changed how you look at your own space tonight, share it with one person who needs to hear that the problem was never their willpower. It was the room, quietly voting against them every single morning. See you in the next one.